Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
How's it, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Josh Lee Kwai.
And I'm Jordan Pridgen.
And we are not sitting where we normally sit.
Nope.
If you're watching us on YouTube, or if you're listening to us, we might sound a teeny bit differently. We got a lot going on in our office. Our studio is being set up for the next episode of Game Night, so we can't shoot up there. So we are shooting on the couch, which is...
Behind the scenes, fun fact, this is actually where I normally sit during the day when I'm working. So
This is Jordan's actual office.
Yeah.
Because he prefers the couch. Okay, enough about that. The Brothers War brings with it some Universes Beyond cards from the Transformers universe. There are 15 of them. There's, 8 Autobots, 7 Decepticons?
Yeah, 8 Autobots, 7 Decepticons, right?
And these cards, they're not standard legal, but they are legal in Commander. They're all legendary creatures, so we figured we'd have to talk about them. On this episode, we are going to be breaking down the Autobots, the good guys, if you will, of the Transformers universe, and all the cool synergies and combos and stuff with those. But before we get into it, we got to talk about our sponsors. And of course, if you want to build any of these Transformer decks, and these cards are pretty cool, got to say, well, you need to get your hands on those cards. And the best place to do that is cardkingdom.com/command. Card Kingdom really just has the best service in the whole MTG e-commerce ecosystem. They get you your cards faster than anybody else. That's my favorite thing about Card Kingdom is you can trust them to get the cards into your hands in time for your next Commander nights. They often send you the shipping confirmation like literal hours or sometimes even minutes after you've made the order. It also can be a bit of a hassle if you're ordering like an entire deck to order off some other websites that are going to ship all your cards from individual little sellers.
You're going to have to check day to day and hope that all your cards keep a little list and track all of them.
Yeah, if I'm ordering like most of the cards for a full deck, I love Card Kingdom because it all comes at once and it comes fast rather than 20 different little packages. And what that means is whatever the slowest package is, you don't have your deck ready to go until that package arrives. So Card Kingdom really just is the best place to go to get your Magic cards. They have great grading. All of it's always very generous. If you get near mint, you're going to get near mint. But I've noticed if I order light play and heavy play, sometimes I'm very... I'm happily surprised with how good the cards look. So cardkingdom.com/command. Can't talk about them highly enough. If you need Brothers War, Dominator United, 40K, Unfinity, any of that stuff, cardkingdom.com/command.
And then, of course, when you get those sweet new cards for your awesome decks, Brothers War stuff, you're going to want to put them in deck boxes and cool sleeves and put on awesome play mats and stuff. And the best place to go for that is ULTRAPRO. ULTRAPRO just has all of the best Magic and Magic accessories with official art from things. So if you want to get a playmat that matches your new Brothers War deck, ULTRAPRO is going to be the place to go to get that. And of course, you can support the channel by going to ultrapro.com/command and getting all your stuff there.
Yeah, I love their website. This is a fairly new thing. They used to only be available. And of course, support your LGS. Buy ULTRAPRO products there if they carry them. But oftentimes you can't find exactly what you want because LGSs don't carry every product from ULTRAPRO. The fact that you can go to their website now and order from them means you can find stuff that was hard to find before. And also they have all kinds of discounts all the time. So again, ultrapro.com/command. And then the final way to support all of our content, actually it's not the final way. I just remembered we have a Kickstarter going on and it's related to ULTRAPRO because we designed some new card sleeves. And we have 3 actually distinct designs. There's a Lotus sleeve, a Tiger sleeve, and then what we're calling a Couture sleeve or a designer sleeve. And we designed these months and months ago, but sleeves are difficult to manufacture. They're just a complicated process. ULTRAPRO did make the sleeves, so you know they use their Eclipse technology. They're very sturdy.
And these ones have like cool metal effects on them and stuff too.
Yeah, the printing process is really good. They look really sharp and classy. There's a Kickstarter going on for it right now. The link will be in the description. The sleeves are very limited because not only is the Kickstarter limited time, but we actually only have a certain number of sleeves. Just the way the manufacturing works, you have to like order a certain number and then wait months and months until they show up. And so when we run out of that amount, that's all we've got. And like all our other, Kickstarter merch, this is the only time we're going to make these designs. So if you like the look of them, and they do look pretty cool, pause the video, go down to the Kickstarter, click the link, lock in your order right now. I wouldn't wait because last time we did sleeves, they sold out very quickly.
Yep.
So go to that link and lock in your order right now. And then, of course, the actual final way to support our content is directly if you go to patreon.com/commandzone. We do all kinds of perks for our patrons. They get to watch Game Nights and Extra Turns earlier than the general public. And, of course, we shout out one lucky patron every single episode. And this episode is dedicated to Abe Hasway. Abe, you rock.
Can confirm.
All right, let's get into this here. The Autobots set review from the Transformers cards from Brothers War. Just one thing to note, because I know there's been some questions out there. How do you find these cards? Where do you get them? The Transformers cards are only available in the set boosters and the collector's boosters.
Right.
So this or that, not draft boosters or other products. And then there are 2 styles that the Transformer cards come in. There are regular style and shattered glass.
The shattered glass is like, there's like an alternate Transformers universe where like the good guys are evil and the evil guys are less evil. Or
I did not know that, but they also look cooler in the shattered glass.
It's pretty neat.
I suppose. Yeah. So the shattered glass versions though are only available in the collector's boosters.
Yep.
So just so you know that. And again, like we said, there are 15 of these Transformer cards. They're all legendary creatures. And if you know anything about the property, they're split up into 2 factions: the Decepticons, who are the bad guys, and the Autobots, who are the good guys. We're going to talk about the Autobots today. That's 8 cards. Before we get into it, a couple rules things about how Transformers work.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing super confusing, but we should go over a couple of things.
Yeah, they're a little confusing, but once you kind of get it, they all have the same sort of basic thing. So the key like mechanic on Transformers is the convert mechanic.
Right. They're all double-sided cards.
Yep.
They have a legendary creature side, and then they flip over, and on the other side, almost all of them are vehicles on the second side.
There's a couple exceptions.
There are 2 that aren't, but yeah, we'll get to those when we get to them. But as you would assume, like Transformers, they turn into vehicles, cars or planes or whatever. If you've ever watched the, who hasn't watched the movies or the
you've seen
the animated things at this time?
You've at least seen the Michael Bay one, right?
Yeah, at least. Well, I was gonna say I hope so, but some of them aren't that great.
Right.
Let's be honest. So they have an ability called Convert, which is what tells them to flip over. If it says convert this card, then you're gonna flip it over to its other side, whatever side it's on. It leads to a question I have to ask, which is, why didn't they call this Transform?
I know the answer.
Okay, go.
So the reason they didn't call it Transform is because if Transformers is just a description of what these things do, like, oh, these are robots who transform, therefore they're Transformers, it's hard to copyright. So they're not robots who transform, they're Transformers, and Transformers convert.
So they didn't want to mess with any future IP claims or anything like that?
It's a legal issue. That it's not a magic thing, it's a Transformers thing. Officially in their canon, they convert. They don't transform.
I thought it might be something to do with the fact that werewolves already transform.
Nope.
And they didn't want to interact with all the cards that reference transforming.
I think the rules in this actually even reference the rules to transform.
Like it works
Magic.
the same.
It's basically the same thing. And actually there's an important little rules bit there, which is that if you manage to trigger your convert twice before it actually flips, it doesn't do like a pancake flip-flop kind of thing.
It just flips and stays, right?
It flips, and then even though the second trigger goes off, because it flipped before that finished, it doesn't convert again.
It basically asks, it says flip to the other side, not just flip wherever it is, right?
Yeah.
Also, we should say the way Transform works, and if you know anything about werewolves, this is how it works. It's not considered a new creature if it transforms. It flips over, it's the same permanent, same object, so it doesn't suffer from summoning sickness or something like that.
Yep, and as long as it's still legal, it keeps any equipment or anything like that on
Aura's equipment would stay on it, because again, it's not a different object, it's the same object.
Yeah.
And it hasn't left the battlefield and come back, you don't retrigger ETBs or anything like that. If you were to blink flicker it though, it will come back only on its front side.
Yep, always on the front side.
Yeah. Now, we said they all transform, just about, there's 2 that don't, into vehicles. But they're weird vehicles. They don't have a crew cost.
Yeah. They have living metal instead, which basically just means that when it's your turn, they're creatures.
Yeah. It just says during your turn, they're creatures, but they're just regular vehicles that aren't creatures on everybody else's turn.
Yeah.
Which is upside downside. The downside is that you can't block with them, and you can't like choose to crew them in some way. They do not have a crew cost.
Yeah.
They just aren't good blockers. But the upside is your commander is that it's hard. It's a lot harder to remove it. It dodges all the sorcery speed removal, and most board wipes are sorcery speed, so it dodges most of that. I play Shurikai as one of my decks, and I've found the fact that it is not a creature to be a huge advantage.
Right.
It's just my commander just gets removed less. And
Much harder to get rid of.
And when you've built your deck around your commander's ability, that is a pretty big upside. Now, of course, these are not the same as Shurikai because they half the time or whatever will be the creature side.
So they become vulnerable on your turn. So if someone is sitting there, with their swords to plowshares, they're like, great, your turn,
kill
swords to plowshares.
Yeah, it's not completely invulnerable, but if they Wrath of God or something, it's not going to hit it. So it won't hit one side of it anyway. And then the final thing is that they all have an ability called More Than Meets the Eye.
More than meets the eye.
So what this means is that it's an alternate casting cost on all of them that says, oh, if you want to cast this and have it enter the battlefield on its other side, on its backside, you can. Just pay this alternate casting cost. And I believe some are cheaper or more expensive depending on what side is more powerful, I guess.
I kind of think most of them want to play on the converted side first. Like, I don't think that's 100% true, and you're going to have to, change up your strategy depending on where you are in the game. But a lot of them seem to be built so that if you play them on their converted side,
it's like a hoop you got to jump through to switch them over, and then you're going to build your deck mostly around the other side?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, well, that's all the stuff we're going to talk about, how the Transformers work. Now we can talk about the actual cards. I'm not sure what happens if I throw it in here because it might land on the couch. Okay,
we'll just forget about it, and a week later I'll be like, what the hell is this? Yeah.
Okay. The first one we have to talk about is, of course, Optimus Prime.
He's the leader.
Autobots transform. Let's roll out.
I like that your Optimus Prime is
basically Sean Connery.
Sean Connery voice, right?
It's a little bit Sean Connery. It's also Zed from Men in Black.
Nice.
We're not hosting an intergalactic kegger. Okay. Optimus Prime Hero is the front side. It costs 3 and Jeskai, so 3 blue, red, white for a 4/8 legendary artifact creature robot. Oh, we didn't mention earlier. The Universes Beyond Transformers actually have their own set code, and it's BOT, B-O-T, and they're all robots.
And they're the type robot, which has only shown up once before in some of the Warhammer 40k decks.
All right, it's a Universes Beyond thing, I suppose. Okay, so 6 mana for a 4/8.
Might have been an Infinity, too.
It says, at the beginning of each end step, bolster 1. Each end step.
Yeah.
So yours, and then your first opponents, your second opponents, your third opponents, by the time it gets back to you, you should have gotten 4 bolster 1s. And bolster is choose a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control, and then put a 1/1 counter on it. So it helps the smallest creature you've got. If you have more than one tied for the same amount, you can choose. Okay, and it says, when Optimus Prime dies, return it to the battlefield converted under its owner's control. So he dies, comes back on the backside. And then Optimus's More Than Meets the Eye cost is actually 1 less than his frontside cost. It's 2 in Jeskai, so 5 mana total. So if you want to just play it backside, it's actually cheaper. Let's go to the backside. Optimus Prime, Autobots leader, has living metal, as we said. It's a 6/8 legendary artifact vehicle. Has living metal, so as long as it's your turn, it is a creature. Has trample. 5 mana, 6/8 trample, not bad.
Yep.
Whenever you attack, bolster 2. So now you would choose a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control and put 2 1/1 counters on it. And that's whenever you attack, not whenever Optimus attacks. The chosen creature gains trample until end of turn. When that creature deals combat damage to a player this turn, convert Optimus Prime back to its front side, where you'll bolster 1 on the end steps. So this is, you're right here. I think you want to play the backside first.
Because then you can attack, get that bolster on somebody, you'll deal the damage, flip Optimus Prime over, and then have him on his front side for the whole round.
So you will have bolstered 3 on your turn, and then you'll bolster on your 3 opponents' turn, and come back, and you'll have gotten about, 5, 6 1/1 counters.
Yeah, with 4 opponents, that's bolster 6.
Yeah, so it is a Jeskai 1/1 counters theme, because bolster is basically a 1/1 counters mechanic, and interesting because we don't see a lot of 1/1 counters themes that don't have green in it. But red and white are both good at 1/1 counters, and blue has a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some counter synergy cards, because that's basically what you're synergizing with is the bolster. There's some other stuff going on, which we'll talk about lightly, but for the most part, this deck is like make some creatures big and smack people.
Yeah. Right off the bat, I mean, you don't have hardened scales because you're not in green. Yep. But another card that kind of does a good job doing a little bit of an imitation is Lae'zel, Vlaakith's Champion, which is from the Baldur's Gate set. And it's basically just a 3/3 legendary creature that if you would put one or more counters on a creature or planeswalker you control or on yourself, put that mini plus one of each of those kind of counters on that permanent or player instead.
So it kind of is hardened scales for this deck. Obviously, if planeswalkers and things, that ups the loyalty. So
that's going to be giving you, I mean, each time you bolster, it's going to be giving you one more. So the bolster 3 on one side, or the bolster 2 on one side is just going to get you one more. But each time you're bolstering around the other turns, that's a lot of extra counters.
Yeah, so if you're going to get 6 in one rotation of the table, now you're going to get 10. Is that right?
Yes.
I think so. I hope I did the math. I added 4 to it. No, it would be 11, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because you're going to get bolster 3 time when you attack, 2. And then you'll get 1 on your turn, and then... You'll bolster 3 and then bolster 2 4 times. Yep.
So 11. All right, we got there. Another card that would be really cool with this is Denry Klin, Editor-in-Chief. It's 2 a white and a blue for a 2/2 legendary cat advisor. It enters the battlefield with your choice of a 1/1 counter, first strike, or a vigilance counter. One of those 3, probably 1/1 counter. Whenever a non-token creature you control enters the battlefield, if Denry has counters on it, put the same number and kind of counters on that creature. First strike's the only one you might consider, but I think you're just going to do 1/1s just because most of your other stuff is going to synergize with the 1/1 counters. So that's just, a similar to, what was the Collar of the Hunter, the Hunt Collar or whatever that, it's the green thing, that's the green creature that puts a 1/1 counter. We did a mobile commercial about
that. Yeah. He's a hunt caller.
No, it was the other one. It was
Renata. Renata called to the hunt.
Called to the hunt.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She just puts a 1/1 counter on anything when it enters the battlefield or whatever. So
you can see how the narrative synergy worked there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you're putting 1/1 counters on stuff. You're increasing the number of 1/1 counters. And then you had a good idea here, which is you kind of want the Counterlords. So in Khans of Tarkir, there was all these cards, and there's been a few since, where they say, creatures you control with a 1/1 counter get an ability because they have counters on it.
Yeah, which I think you're going to get counters on everything, because if it doesn't have a counter now, eventually something's going to get bigger than it, and then it'll start getting counters.
Yeah, that's the way bolster works, is the smallest thing gets counters, and then it's not the smallest thing anymore, so the next smallest thing gets counters.
Well, and the thing I like about Denry we just mentioned is he sort of sets the baseline higher, so everything is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. But some of the best Counterlords are like Einok Bondkin, which gives every creature with a +1/+1 counter on it first strike, which, gets real good because they're going to be big.
Stuff,
really, really big. And then Abzan Falconer, which gives every creature with a +1/+1 counter on it flying.
That's just going to be a finisher. A lot of times you'll be able to play that. They'll thought they could block, and now it's like, nope, you can't block any of my stuff. It's all flying now. And you die.
Yeah.
Bondkin and Falconer also have Outlast, so they can give themselves counters, which is pretty cool. You've got another one on here called Aki Battle Squad.
So this isn't exactly the same sort of Counterlord thing, but it's going to work really well with the modified stuff that...
Oh yeah, don't forget, a 1/1 counter on a creature means that it is modified. So if something refers to modified creatures, a lot of those, most of your creatures will be modified. Yeah.
Those recent Kamigawa cards. This one is 5 and a red, and it says, whenever one or more modified creatures you control attack, untap all modified creatures you control. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase. This ability triggers only once each turn. So it's just an extra combat every turn for what will probably be all your creatures.
Yeah, and remember, Optimus will bolster again the second attack. So extra attacks, always good in sort of stompy decks like this. Going to be even better here. Then, of course, there's stuff like the Ozolith, which just allows you to keep your counters when creatures die that have counters and put them onto different creatures. Yeah. Blue actually does a pretty good job at using the counters. Not as good at maybe creating counters, but there's stuff like Simic Manipulator, which is 1 blue for an 0/1. Has evolved, so whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature has greater power or toughness than this creature, you put a 1/1 counter on it. It is an 0/1. But it also has tap and remove 1 or more 1/1 counters, and then gain control of target creature with power less than or equal to the number of 1/1 counters removed this way. And that is an instant. Yeah. So what you can do is if you get 5 or 6 counters on this thing, not that hard to do with the bolster plus the evolve, You can just sit there and threaten to take anything on the board.
Yeah, you're just stealing stuff at will.
And by the way, you take it. It doesn't say until Simic Manipulator dies. Like, you've just got
it's
that
yours.
thing. Yeah.
And then, you take it, you've removed the counters from it, and it's the target for all the bolsters from then on. So it's going to go
probably
right
gonna
back
take
up.
stuff really soon again. Yeah. Then, of course, the classic Sage of Hours, which is 1 and a blue for a 1/1. Whenever you cast a spell, it has heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets it, you put a 1/1 counter on it. But it says remove all 1/1 counters from Sage of Hours. For each 5 counters removed this way, take an extra turn after this one. So again, same idea as far as it's going to get a lot of counters because it's a small creature to begin with. And then all you need is 5, and you're taking extra turns. And with the extra turn, you're going to put more counters on it. Imagine if you have the Aki Battle Squad out, a couple of attacks, more counters. It's not inconceivable to get into some kind of loop where you're virtually taking unlimited turns.
I would say, and then it works very well with modular creatures.
Yeah.
Because modular creatures come in with counters on them. When you put more on them and they eventually die, then you just get to give them to someone else.
Yeah, modular reads, this creature enters the battlefield with however many the modular number is, that many 1/1 counters on it. So it's modular 2, it enters the battle with 2. But it also says when it dies, you may put its 1/1 counters on target artifact creature.
So it just acts kind of like the Ozolith as we mentioned earlier, in that making sure that those counters you've put on things don't just go away when they die. Like, it just keeps building your board up and keeping it consistent.
Yeah, so all that bolster, as long as nobody wipes everything all at once, which is kind of tough to do because Optimus is a vehicle on your turn.
Yeah.
Although it's not an artifact creature, so if they board wipe and Optimus is your only is around, you can't put all the creatures on it because it won't be a creature at that time.
Yeah, definitely.
But as long as they're just singularly removing stuff where you have a way to make something indestructible or something, then you can sort of save all that power and toughness. Yeah, there's stuff like Arcbound Shikari. There's Arcbound Javelineer, which I like. It has modular 1, but you can tap it and remove X/1/1 counters to deal X damage to target attacking or blocking creature.
Just throw javelins of counters at them.
It's awesome. Arcbound Ravager is a classic modular card and kind of the best one because it has modular 1 for 2. It's a 2-mana 1/1 basically, but it says sacrifice an artifact, put a 1/1 counter on Arcbound Ravager. Yeah. So this is insane with other modular creatures because imagine that Arcbound Shikari has like 3 counters on it or 4 counters on it. You sack it, you get the 1/1 counter on Arcbound Ravager, and then you could put the 4 counters that were on Arcbound Shikari onto Arcbound Ravager as well. And then let's imagine you have Lizelle or, that kind of thing out. All of a sudden, you're getting like 7, 8, 9, 10 counters on Arcbound Ravager. And then you can go, I'll sack the Arcbound Ravager to put all of those counters, because it has modular, onto my Optimus, which is now commander damage and you're dead. That kind of stuff.
And spoiler, the Sacrifice an Artifact is really good with Optimus too, because, when he dies, he just comes back as the other side of the truck. So
you want him to die. Yeah.
I say spoiler because we're going to talk a bit more about that in a moment.
And then, of course, there are other synergies with 1/1 counters. So Together Forever.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
And I think there are a number of these Autobots we're going to talk about that have 1/1 counter stuff going on. And if they're in white, they're going to want Together Forever and this kind of stuff. But Together Forever is white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you support 2, which is different than bolster because it says you put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures.
Yep.
So
you get a little more choice.
Yep. But it says you pay 1, choose target creature with a counter on it. When that creature dies this turn, return that creature to its owner's hand. Yep. So it can save creatures that are dying. You don't lose the card advantage. It doesn't go to the battlefield or anything, but still pretty good.
Yeah. But it can really help you shore up your game. If you have this out and Optimus is putting counters on everything, it's very, very difficult to get rid of your...
and then, of course, if you're doing 1/1 counter stuff, Persist is a very, very strong thing to be doing. And the best Persist creature maybe that exists is Glenalendra Archmage.
Oh, Glenn.
Yeah, which is a 2/2 flyer for 3 and a blue, but it has pay a blue, sack Glenalendra Archmage, and counter target non-creature spell. And then has Persist, which means when it dies, it will return to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it. However... the thing about -1 counters and +1 counters are they cancel out.
Yeah.
So if a creature has a -1 counter on it and then gets a +1 counter, it now has no counters on it. So all you have to do is bolster 1 time, because this will be a 1/1 with a -1 counter, and it's reset to... And since you do that at every end step with Optimus out, this Glenalendra will be oppressively good.
You can counterspell stuff all the time. It's
basically 1 per player's turn.
Yeah.
So and if they want to get at something else, they'll have to kill Glenalendra twice and then have a 3rd spell to get rid of what they actually want to get rid of.
And they have to kill Glenalendra with a spell that you somehow can't counter with Glenalendra.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Of course, if you want to just give all your creatures persist, there's always good old Cauldron of Souls.
Yep.
Which just is an artifact for 5 that has tap and choose any number of target creatures. Each of those creatures gets persist until end of turn. And as we said, it's like, if someone wipes your board, you just tap Cauldron of Souls, you wipe everything. You can even wipe the board yourself.
Yep. This is a way you could play a board wipe and be like, I give all my stuff persist.
And then Optimus will just go around and be like, remove that one counter.
Yep.
Counter.
Everything's back to normal.
We're all back to exactly where we were. Let's do it again.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
The next category you called Hit Like a Truck, which I like.
Because he can turn into a truck.
Right, because Optimus Prime is a truck.
Right.
So there's a bunch of... I guess these are similar to the Counterlords.
They are, but...
They don't give a specific ability.
Yeah. So the first one is Herald of Secret Streams, which is just a merfolk for 3 and a blue. And it has basically creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them can't be blocked.
That's a lot like Abzan Falconer, but even better.
Yeah, I think that can just win the game. You can play that card and be like, great. That's all
and I suggest you hold that in your hand until that is the case. Or at least you're KOing a player. Because they're going to look around and be like, oh, okay, it's scary, but I can block it, so I think I'm going to live. And then you go... Herald of Secret Streams, attack, you're all dead.
If you put that card down with Optimus Prime and people don't go, you're the threat now, they're wrong. They have misevaluated the board. Another great one, this is one of Jamie's favorites. He's killed us a bunch with some of his decks in this, is called Sigarda's Summons. This is 4 white for an enchantment with creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them, have base power and toughness 4/4, have flying, and are angels in addition to their other types.
Boy, that's really good with the modular.
Yes.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a power and toughness. They're 0/0s. So it gives them all +4/+4. They keep their counters, and now they have flying?
Yeah.
Wow.
Really crazy.
Turns them all into Sarah Angels, kind of. No vigilance, I suppose.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Then, of course, Optimus has to die, or you have to have control of when Optimus dies, right? So...
Because basically, if people can exile Optimus, he's expensive. You're going to have to pay a lot for him. But
otherwise, he's tough to kill.
Yeah, he's very tough to kill.
Because he's only sorcery speed on their turn. Or sorry, instant speed on your turn.
Yep.
On the other side.
Uh-huh.
So even if he's on his creature side, if you have a Sac Outlet, they can't go to Swords of Plowshare it because you sack it in response and then it flips over to the vehicle side.
Yep.
Yeah. So Ashnod's Altar, Phyrexian Altar, Altar of Dimension, all the altars. Goblin Bombardment's a good one. High Market. I would play cards like this. I mean, the lands. Because you don't need 2 or 3 of these on the battlefield. You just need one. Arcbound Ravager counts as one as well.
And the thing is, having a Sac Outlet is always kind of good.
Yeah.
Like, it just can negate removal and really mess up people's spells all over the place. But it's just, you've got to have one with Optimus Prime. I would really prioritize getting one on the battlefield. It also just lets you have control over the fact that after you go around the whole board, like when you put on the person who's before you, on their instep, you put that bolster thing on the battlefield, you probably are going to want to sack Optimus Prime.
Yeah, you want
to
him
flip back
over
on the truck side.
Yeah, you want the truck side on your turn, for sure.
Yep, and if you have a Sac Outlet, you can do that every round.
All right, cool. Optimus seems like a big, stompy, punch you in the face type of deck.
Oh, I guess the one last thing to note on Optimus is a lot of the upcoming Autobots are going to play very well in Optimus.
It makes sense, of course, because he is the leader of the Autobots.
Yep.
Or the Autobots. Optobots? Maybe that's what they should have been called.
The Octobots.
The Opta, because Optimus.
The Opta.
Octobots, there's only 8. Actually, there is 8.
Hey!
All right.
Up next,
like Octobomb,
is Ultra Magnus.
All right, Ultra Magnus Tactician is 4 and Naya, so 4 red, green, white.
That's expensive.
7 mana total for a 7/7 legendary artifact creature robot. Has Ward 2, so at least it protects itself a little for so much mana. It says whenever Ultra Magnus attacks, you may put an artifact creature card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. If you do, convert Ultra Magnus at the end of combat. I was looking for that sacrifice at the end of turn thing. That's not there.
No,
you just put it. It's okay.
You just get it.
And it has more than meets the eye for 2 and Naya, so 5 mana for if you want to play it on its truck side. It's a truck that has missiles on it, though. Ultra Magnus Armored Carrier is the backside. Has living metal. It's a 4/7 legendary vehicle. Has haste. Whenever Ultra Magnus attacks, attacking creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. If those creatures have total power 8 or greater, convert Ultra Magnus. Interesting. So there's a little tug and pull because both of them are attack triggers.
Yeah.
So if you attack on one side and flip it to the other, you won't get the attack trigger on the other side because it's not it doesn't attack it just is attacking.
A lot of the way these are designed is that you can get some advantage from flipping it and kind of get both of it on the same turn. He sort of doesn't seem to work that way. I mean, they're both very powerful effects, but you sort of gotta pick the one you want to have and set up your turn to work with that.
Yeah, the one I want to have is the sneak attack artifact.
One. But you don't want to pay 7 to do it, right? So I imagine you probably play him on the 5 side.
He's got haste.
And he's already a 4/7, so you just need to put 4 more power
and swing in and swing. But then I'm flipping it over. It's got Ward 2, sure, but like people are really not going to want to let you swing with that. It's like Kalia.
Yeah.
It basically is Kalia, but it's just saying a different kind of creature that you can put into play.
Instead of, what is it, angels, demons,
and dragons.
Dragons, right.
Yeah. And there are some scary artifact creatures, and you can get anything out. And of course, I think the one we all thought of, especially Craig, is Blightsteel Colossus.
Of course.
Which is a 11/11 trample infect indestructible. So that just, if you have that in your hand and you attack once with the front side of Ultra Magnus, somebody's dead unless,
maybe they have blockers for it, but if you chose correctly...
Somebody's dead.
Somebody's dead.
I'd say for most Commander games at most points, if you just imagine, if a Blightsteel just entered attacking that person, are they dead? And for most of the time, it's like, yep.
Oh, yep.
There's other stuff that's not as scary as Blightsteel, but still, like... pretty scary, especially you're getting on the battlefield for free.
Yeah.
Stuff like Wormcoil Engine.
Wormcoil Engine is a classic. Death Touch, Lifelink, 6/6. When it dies, it makes 2 3/3s with Death Touch and Lifelink.
One with Death Touch, one with Lifelink,
yeah.
There's Darksteel Colossus. There's Triplicate Titan. These are just big things that give you some additional value. There's also like utility stuff that you can just put out, right? That's still kind of expensive. Meteor Golem's a really good one.
Yeah.
It's 7 mana normally for a 3/3 that destroys an online permanent, though.
Yeah, but it could just clear the way out, you know? Like, if you're going to do that attack and you drop that down and kill the one thing that actually could block effectively...
Even if it's not that, if it's just their doubling season or their Planeswalker or whatever,
sure, yeah.
It's 7 mana worth of value that you got for nothing. Yeah, there's Duplicant, Exile as a creature, Angel of Ruins.
Angel of the Ruins.
Of the Ruins, sorry.
Yeah.
I always screw that up when I'm typing this Scryfall. I'm like, I know this is a card. Why does this say...
It's got to exist
can't
somewhere.
Find it. Oh, it's of the Ruins.
And Angel of the Ruins has plane cycling too, so you don't care that much if it's in your hand early on and you're just going to get caught in there.
Well, I want it in my hand early on so I can put it out for free
so you can
because
trick it
when
out,
it enters the battlefield, it exiles up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantments.
Yeah, very good. And then one I really liked in this deck particularly is Combustible Gear Hulk.
Yeah.
Which is 4 red, and it has first strike, and let me just make sure I got the wording right. And it is a 6/6, and when Combustible Gear Hulk enters the battlefield, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If the player doesn't, you mill 3 cards. Then Combustible Gear Hulk deals damage to that player equal to the total mana value of those cards, which probably is going to be pretty high when you have things like Triplicate Titan and Darksteel Colossus in your deck,
And Magnus is not small.
No.
Right? It's a 4/7 or a 7/7. Well, it's probably going to flip over to its 4/7 side. This thing has first strike. They're already going to probably be taking 6 from it.
Oh, yeah.
I can see them being like, I really don't want to pay any more life here. So you might just draw a bunch of cards, which is, what I want to have happen. Yeah. Yeah, that seems pretty good. And then let's talk about the improved tactics, because Magnus is a tactician.
Right.
You were saying that you want to make sure that you're attacking Magnus isn't in danger of dying.
Because the things have to enter tapped and attacking. And for the most part, the best way to do that is just going to be, bring in big creatures and stuff. But there are, a couple things that make that attack have a lot less risk to it. One of the best, I think, is Lochiel, Clockwork Scholar. It is a 2 and a white for a 2/4 legendary creature, Elephant Artificer. And
it's not an artifact, notably.
No, it's not. But it's
That's
worth
fine.
it.
It's a 3 mana card, yeah.
Because it prevents all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking artifact creatures you control. And whenever one or more artifact creatures enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn.
So it synergizes with everything you're doing, because artifact creatures are going to be getting played a lot or put onto the battlefield. You're going to draw cards, and then it protects those attacks. And it doesn't prevent your artifact creature from dealing damage, just taking damage.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Entirely one-sided.
Tempered Steel is an Anthem effect. It's an enchantment, 1 white. Artifact creatures you control get +2/+2.
Pretty nice. And then there's Audric, Master Tactician.
Did you suggest this one just because he also has the word tactic?
It made me think of it. But whenever Audric, Master Tactician, and at least 3 other creatures attack, you choose which creatures block this combat and how those creatures block. So, like...
You can straight up be like, that's going to block and I'm going to kill it, or like, you're just not going to block. You're going to take all this damage.
Yeah, it can be really nice if you are dropping, one of these big 11/11s or something and be like, yeah, I'm going to have these 3 creatures block it, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, that only adds up to 10 damage? Oh, that's a shame. You lose everything.
Oh, what a shame. And then, of course, one of the best things you can do with a attack trigger that's this powerful is extra attack steps.
Yeah.
Especially since you definitely want to get the sneak attack one in. So if you're flipping from one to the other and then back, you want to make sure one of those is the cheetah creature into play. But Aurelia the War Leader, Morag, Fury of Akum, Aggravated Assault.
Yeah.
Aggravated Assault is often difficult to actually pay for. To get maximum value, because in order to play a creature and then activate it, you need so much mana. But on this one, since you're sneaking something into play...
Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah, if you go attack, put a triplicate Titan or something into the battlefield, then, okay, I haven't spent any mana yet this turn. Mm-hmm. Now I pay the Aggravated Assault, and I'm attacking with that Titan twice.
And it kind of works on either side of Ultra Magnus, because either you attack on the truck side first, everything gets indestructible, and I mean, they still have that indestructible for the second set of attacks, or you attack and you bring in something.
And then it gets indestructible on the second attack.
Yeah, when it flips it back, everything is indestructible for the second attack. So it just works very well either way.
Yeah. Seems like a powerful card. I think, it has to attack to do its thing, so it's not going to be... It's definitely not as broken as Sneak Attack, which just is like, hey, do you have red mana? Do this 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But you do keep this stuff forever. You don't have to sack it at the end of turn. So
which is a really powerful effect, so it's pretty cool.
All right, this next one I'm actually pretty excited for, and I don't say that very often about mono-white decks.
Yeah, but this one... is a really powerful effect. And I think the more we thought about kind of the ways you could use it, it was like, oh, wow, this is cool and interesting.
Yeah, it can do a lot of cool stuff. So it's Ratchet Field Medic, 2 and a white for a 2/4 legendary robot, has lifelink, and then says, whenever you gain life, you may convert Ratchet. When you do, return target artifact card with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you gained this turn from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. It's interesting because it'll actually convert before it does the second thing, which is important because on the backside, it's a 1/4 vehicle with living metal, still has lifelink, but it says whenever one or more non-token artifacts you control are put into a graveyard from the battlefield, convert Ratchet. This ability triggers only once each turn. So what you can do, well, we're going to talk about the converting thing.
It's a little complicated, but you can get some real advantage out of Ratchet.
And you can sort of convert it back and then convert it right back again.
And it's also important to note that the convert on the front side is a may.
Yes.
So if you gain 1 life, you don't have to...
You can just be like, nope, I'm going to gain 2 life in a second, and I'm going to gain 3 life. And down the third one, I've gained 6 life now, and now I'm going to do the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a mono-white artifact recursion deck. And... The thing that's keeping this whole thing in check, because I think it would be very broken if it didn't say once per turn.
Oh, it would be nuts if you could just take it back and forth and back and forth. It would be... I could think of 10 ways to go infinite.
Exactly.
Just give me a minute.
Now, you can, with Blink Flicker, or maybe with letting it die and bring it back to the battlefield, pull off some amount of that. But in general, you're going to be able to get 2 things back. Because imagine a turn where you gain some life, you flip it, you bring back an artifact, and then that artifact, you are able to sack it in some way.
Yeah.
It flips Ratchet back over. That's your once per turn. But now you're on that front side. And if you gain some more life, you get to bring another artifact, probably a bigger one because you've now gained more life. And now it'll flip over to the vehicle side. And now you're kind of stuck there because you can't convert it again.
So let's just talk about the first artifact we have on our list here, because I think this play pattern really shows like how powerful it could be.
And it does everything on its own.
It's Sunbeam Spellbomb. And this is just 1 mana for an artifact that has the abilities: pay white, sacrifice Sunbeam Spellbomb, you gain 5 life. Or pay 1, sacrifice Sunbeam Spellbomb, draw a card. That's nice too, but the first ability is the one we want to talk about here.
Wait, no, the one that draw a card is the one I want to talk
know, about. Normally, Josh. Normally.
Well, Ratchet's got lifelink, so I'm gaining 2 life and getting this. And drawing
today.
2 cards.
But just imagine this. You play Sunbeam Spellbomb while Ratchet is on the front side. You pay the white to sacrifice Sunbeam Spellbomb and gain 5 life. You trigger Ratchet and you're like, yep, that's fine. I'm going to flip him and I'm going to bring Sunbeam Spellbomb back from the graveyard because it's already in the graveyard by the time that it goes. Then you sacrifice Sunbeam Spellbomb and...
Draw a card.
And, well, you sacrifice... No, you don't sacrifice it. You sacrifice it to gain life.
Sure, because now you bring a 10 drop back.
Yeah, exactly. You sacrifice Sunbeam Spellbomb. While that triggers on the stack, Ratchet flips back over onto the front side, then the trigger goes off, you gain 5 life again, and suddenly you can choose to flip it to the backside again and bring a 10 drop back from your graveyard. And you can do this on like turn 2 or 3.
Yeah, well, Ratchet has to be out, so it's probably turn 4, maybe turn 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very easy to do, and that's like a really inexpensive...
I mean, you'd have to have a 10-drop artifact also in your graveyard at that
Sure.
point. That part's the hard part. Yeah.
I mean, you could also bring up something less than 10.
Of course, I'm just like, here's what I'm going to do. Attack with Ratchet, gain my 2 life off the lifelink. Play the Selfmilling, sack it for the draw card. One draw card. Attack with Ratchet, gain the 2 life. Bring it back, sack it for the for the card draw. Right? Gain life in some other way, bring it back, sack it for the card draw. I drew 3 cards off of this thing.
You just have card draw colored glasses on all the time.
10-drop artifact. Who wants that? I just want 3 cards in my hand. Yeah. But I see what you're saying. That's what I think the Sunbeam Spellbomb's so good because as the game progresses, at first you can just bring it back a couple of times to draw cards, and then once you've gotten your engine going and got enough things in the graveyard, because White doesn't have as easy of a time self-milling, but there definitely are artifacts that do it, which I like, because you can always bring those artifacts back to sort of self-mill. There's stuff like Wayfarer's Bauble, Mishra's and Urza's Bauble. Yeah. Those are going to work in similar ways.
Those are just nice because they'll get them from the backside to the front side basically whenever you want.
Yep. Implement of Improvement, similar to Sunbeam Spellbomb, I really like. Bottle Gnomes is a really interesting one.
I know, and I love a deck where Bottle Gnomes can be good. I mean, come on.
It's 3 mana for a 1/3. You can sacrifice it, 1/3 artifact creature, Golem. Gnome. You can sacrifice it and gain 3 life. So it can sort of do a similar thing to Sunbeam Spellbomb, but it doesn't have card draw staple to it. Still pretty cool. Yes. I mean, this whole thing feels like it'll be nuts with the classic scrap trawler, mirror retriever, salvaging station, grind station type of stuff. Just because scrap trawler is super powerful, and we've all seen people, myself on game nights, of course, go through the scrap trawler stuff and just recurse stuff over and over and spin wheels and whatever. And eventually, usually get to the point where like, oh, I reached the end of the CMC thing and I can't, whatever, usually have to stop. But Ratchet can say, oh, no, you get to keep going because now you can sack the scrap trawler.
Ratchet will bring the biggest thing back
and then start the whole thing again.
Little chain over again.
Yeah, and then it'll bring the biggest thing back a second time.
Yeah.
So this feels like that part of it is going to be annoying because it'll take a while, but very powerful. Yeah. Of course, you don't have to just do little value things. So
you can do big value things.
Yeah, if we're doing the Sunbeam Spellbomb thing and gaining 10 life, then what are the artifacts we want to be getting out onto the battlefield? And a lot of them are kind of the same. Blightsteel or something like that you can get.
Wormcoil Engine, we mentioned before.
Meteor Golem, still good.
But you also don't have to just do artifact creatures, which is a real nice difference from some of the other ones here. And like stuff like Darksteel Forge immediately comes to mind.
Yep.
Like a lot of artifacts that kind of wouldn't be worth playing because they're too expensive, stuff like that, could be pretty easy to reanimate back using this.
Yeah, now the trick is you want these big artifacts that you're going to recur, you got to get them in your graveyard.
Yep.
And White doesn't have a lot of looting or rummaging. And you don't want to have to cast them first because what's the point of cheating something out if you could just cast it?
Yeah.
So self-mill is what you're going to want to do because that's going to be like giving you more tools in your toolbox.
Yep.
So Millstone's a classic one. Perpetual Timepiece works very similarly.
Mesmeric Orb.
Mesmeric Orb is really good because that tends to mill a lot of cards as over the course of the game.
Yep.
I just had a game recently where I got milled out from Mesmeric Orb. I was playing over Spell Table, and I was like, that card's going to kill me, and it did.
And you know what?
I was playing my Tim deck, which taps and untaps things all the time. So like every turn, I was like, oh crap, I'm milling 15 or something. But Mesmeric Orbs, it might be good for your opponents. You have to be a little careful. But for you, just your normal untap step like mills you for 5 or 6. And if one of those cards is a Darksteel Forge or whatever, all of a sudden you get access to something very powerful to recur.
Well, and if you're worried about the Mesmeric Orb killing you, you can always go into this next category of things, which is sacrifice outlets for your artifacts.
Yeah, because if you're going to recur things, you need them to get into the graveyard so that you can bring them back for more value. So
yeah.
Krark-Clan Ironworks, Trading Post, Claws of Gix is a really good one because it also gains life.
Gains you life as it sacrifices. It kind of just does the whole shebang on itself too.
Yeah, all the altars. These are great because they are themselves artifacts. So once you get one of these online, it's very difficult for your opponent to keep it like to get rid of it forever. Sure, you can exile an artifact or two, but in general, that's hard to do. And you're just like, whatever, my sacrifice outlet is the thing I'm going to recur so that I can get my engine going for, all the other shenanigans that I'm going to do.
I think one of my favorite potential sack outlets is Oswald Fiddlebender.
Yeah.
Because he's 1 and a white, he's a 2/2, but then he has the ability Magical Tinkering. I like that they give them the little flavor names. But it's just white and tap, sacrifice an artifact, search your library for an artifact card with mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrifice artifact's mana value, put it in the battlefield, then shuffle. Activate only as a sorcery.
So birthing pod kind of?
Yeah, but those things that you've sacrificed, you're just going to be bringing back. So you could get to the point where the Oswald, I mean, you'd have to build your deck a little bit just to make sure you have stuff at the different levels, but like, you're just going to continue increasing your board and being able to bring those things back. Eventually, you're going to be able to search for any artifact you want because you're going to have the whole array. It
won't matter because the first thing they'll go get is Scrap Trawler, and then it's over.
Yeah.
It's over for you.
And then you're done.
Yeah, they don't have to go very far up the line. Mm-hmm. I think there's probably some nutso stuff because I was thinking about Blink Flicker, and it's not very efficient. You might be able to do some stuff with it to make it so Ratchet can do another 2 artifact recursions, so you get around that only once per turn thing. But I think white's a lot better with recurring something that died this turn.
Yeah.
And those are really strong. So something like Faith's Reward, I can see turns you set up with Clark Klein Ironworks or something like that, where you go, cool, sack, recur some stuff, sack everything, Faith's Reward, bring it all back, sack. And if Ratchet was one of the things you sacked near the end,
then you can keep it going.
Now I got 2 more recursions, right? Brought Back could do that too. It only brings back 2 things, but if one of them's Ratchet and the other one's Scrap Trawler, I feel like you're going to be able to win somewhere in there.
Well, and just remember, Ratchet's ability is bring back for the amount of life you've gained that turn. That like keeps adding up. It keeps being cumulative. So by the end, you're just like, cool, anything in my graveyard that's an artifact,
I'm getting it.
I'm getting it back.
That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I think this deck's actually going to be quite powerful. And I don't know why I said actually. Artifacts deck is just already very powerful, and this is has some cool tools for it.
But
for
still,
sure.
This is a cool way to have like card advantage and recursion and stuff in white.
Yeah, mono white. I'm excited about it.
Hey.
All right, we have I think 5 more Autobots to go, including probably almost certainly what is the most powerful one. But before we get to that, we're going to take a quick break and hear a message from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
The holidays are coming up, and that means there's plenty of shopping to do.
Now, a lot of us have friends and loved ones with pretty specific hobbies, and it can be hard to find that perfect gift.
Yeah, but with Etsy, no interest is too obscure.
Etsy has plenty of special presents for everyone on your list, and they're ready to ship for the holidays.
You can shop for jewelry, decor, or personalized gifts, and it's especially good for Magic players. They've got tons of awesome gaming accessories from custom deck boxes to incredible card altars.
We even used Etsy to make the Game Nights Live championship belt.
Now that's about fit for a champion.
With Etsy, it's easy to find gifts that are truly meaningful and for all budgets. Plus, you're always shopping directly from makers, so every purchase supports a small business.
A gift from Etsy just really feels thoughtful. And as they say, it's the thought vessel that counts.
And if they don't say that, they should, because it's a good mana rock.
New to Etsy, use code MERRY10, that's MERRY 10 at checkout for 10% off your first purchase. Again, that's code MERRY10. Maximum value of $50. Offer ends December 31st, 2022. See terms at etsy.com/terms. For gifts of all kinds, Etsy has it. Shop etsy.com.
Well, hello there, friends. I'm Glunch the Bestower, everyone's favorite gift-giving flump. Ho-ho! The holidays are coming up, and for a bestower like me, that's the busy season. So many wonderful gifts to give. In fact, sometimes I get so caught up in being Glunch, I don't have time to prepare lunch. Oh no! That's why I plan ahead with Factor, the ready-to-eat meal service that preps, cooks, and delivers delicious dishes right to my enchanted grotto. Factor meals are ready in just 2 minutes, and they've got over 30 options each week, including nutritious, flump-friendly categories like vegan, calorie plus, or keto. Plus, it's much cheaper than dining out, so I can save my holiday treasure for my friends and opponents. So get Factor. It's way better than just eating peanut butter and jellyfish sandwiches all the time. Don't overthink it. Hoo-hoo!
Head to go.factor75.com/command60 and use code command60 to get 60% off your first box. That's code command60 at go.factor75.com/command60 to get 60% off your first box.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp.
So, Jimmy, you excited about the holidays?
Yeah, for the most part. But look, while this time of year is great, it does come with its own set of challenges.
Yeah, that's true. Dealing with family, work, relationships. I mean, geez, even the planning can be pretty stressful.
Yeah, and while there is no user manual for when life gets complicated, there is always the next best thing, therapy.
Therapists are trained to help you figure out the cause of challenging emotions and develop healthy coping skills.
I've been seeing a therapist for years, and having someone to talk to has helped me through all sorts of difficult situations. One thing I've been learning a lot of is about patience recently. Having a child is very taxing, and going into the holidays with the extra stress, it's important to keep an even keel.
As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable.
Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist.
Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/commandzone. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/commandzone. All right, we are back. We are talking about the Transformers Universes Beyond cards from the Brothers War. We're talking specifically about the Autobots. We've got 5 to go. Without any further ado, what is the next one?
The next one is Prow, Stoic Strategist. For 3 and a white, it is a 3/3 legendary artifact creature robot. Whenever Prowl attacks, exile up to 1 other target tapped creature or vehicle. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. And whenever a player plays a card exiled with Prowl, you draw a card and convert Prowl. And then it's more than meets the eye cost is 2 and a white, which would let you play Prowl Pursuit Vehicle, which is a 2/3 legendary artifact vehicle with living metal, like a lot of them. And whenever another creature or vehicle enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Prowl. If this is the second time this ability is resolved this turn, convert Prowl.
All right, so the backside's pretty simple. Creatures or vehicles make it grow when they ETB, and then it eventually flips over after you've done that twice.
Right.
The first side's really weird.
It is.
Whenever Prowl attacks, exile up to 1 other target tapped creature or vehicle.
Yeah.
For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. So
my instincts are that you want to get rid of you want to do your
sense.
stuff most so that you can play them again and get the card draw off of it.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's the first thing you think of. Of course, I'm going to exile my own stuff, and that means, but the fact that it says its owner may play it means if you did exile someone else's thing,
they can play it again. So
they
you don't
can
want to
play it again. But it says whenever a player plays a card exiled with Prowl, you draw a card and convert Prowl. It's not a may.
No.
So there's another downside to if you exile their thing, which is they can force you to convert Prowl at their will.
I guess that's true.
Oh, at sorcery speed during their turn, probably, because it's a creature or vehicle that you exiled. Super weird, though, just that the fact that it was like, yes, you can. Like, they could have easily said, exile a thing you control, but they didn't. They said, yeah, if you want to, you could do your opponents. And it is kind of annoying. They got to recast the thing, but it's not like backbreaking. They don't just lose it forever. That just struck me as weird, and I just want to put a pin in it.
So the thing that's interesting to me about the backside, which is kind of how I imagine I would play it if I'm building it, is that if you do manage to make a lot of things enter at the same time, all those tokens, this is going to trigger a ton of times. Like,
right,
it will only
let's say you
convert it
played
once,
like a mere battle sphere.
Yeah.
It's going to trigger it 6 times.
Yeah.
But it'll convert it on the second one.
Sure,
but
it
still
gets
the
the counters on all of it. So it kind of leads to sort of like some Flicker Voltron shenanigans.
Yeah, that's weird. Flicker plus Voltron.
Yeah, you
don't see that a lot.
It's sort of go wide Voltron. Because the wider you go in one thing, the more it puts on this, and then you prowl in and
I don't like
take
that.
people
I
out.
don't want my strategy to have that kind of internal conflict.
It's confusing.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about good ETBs. White is one of the Flicker colors, so it has a decent amount. And remember, this is not like your classic Brago or something like that, because you do have to play the card, so you have to pay the casting cost again.
Yeah, so I think it's good to keep the CMC a little low.
Yeah, you want little things that you're exiling with Prowl, because you do get the additional value of drawing the card. So if you think of like Knight of the White Orchid, Wall of Omen, Spirited Companion, these are all really good because you'll pay 2. Spirited Companion is like pay 2, draw 2.
Yeah,
right. So that's like any rate that is 1 mana per card is really, really good.
Yeah.
Knight of the White Orchid is pay 2, draw 1, ramp. And you wouldn't obviously exile it if you don't have less lands than somebody. So that seems like a really good core to the deck. Find as many 2 and 1 CMC things with some kind of value ETB on them as you can.
Well, then Charming Prince is, of course, a really good addition because that just, when you play it, lets you flicker something else. So that can kind of turn, into a more traditional flicker deck and let you play that kind of game.
Yeah, if you're already have this big package of cards that have value ETBs that you're trying to flicker, then white's actually pretty good at giving you some more pieces so you can flicker more than just off of your commander. So Restoration Angel, Teleportation Circle's a really good one. Conjurer's Closet,
same sort of thing.
You probably want Panharmonicon because you're going to be taking advantage of ETBs. So you're going to have this blink flicker package. I thought that Vidalcan Ori is pretty powerful because the cards that you exile off of Prowl, that'll give you the ability to, at instant speed, convert him.
Yeah, so you can have him back when you want him.
You have your Spirited Companion just sitting there, and if anybody went to remove him, you'd be like, cool, convert it over by casting this card.
Yep.
And I like to, take any chance to talk about Vidalcan Ori, of course. Now, the interesting thing is, you can't exile anything. The thing you're exiling has to be a creature, a vehicle, and it has to be tapped.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to tap your stuff because Spirited Companion, if you attack with it, it's probably going to die.
Yeah, and you don't want to be reliant on always attacking. So things like Springleaf Drum work really well.
I guess you just attack with it and Prowl at the same time because Prowl is an attack trigger.
Yeah.
But still, yeah.
I mean, you're going to have to attack with Prowl. That's the downside of it. And that's why I think he's kind of got that Voltron energy to him and stuff. But
another reason you want Vidalcan Ori.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll talk about that in a second. Keep going. Springleaf Drum.
Springleaf Drum is great. It's sort of ramp that also lets you tap down a creature, which seems like a downside at first, but I mean, Springleaf Drum is only 1, and then it has the ability to tap an untapped creature you control, add 1 mana of any color.
Yep.
That's solid ramp, and when the tapping is an upside, it's even better. Relic of Legends is nice. It is 3 mana for tap, add 1 mana of any color, tap an untapped legendary creature you control, add 1 mana of any color. Only works on legendary creatures, but if you have what you feel is a threshold in that deck, it's another thing that lets you tap stuff down.
Yeah, just vehicles are going to be good, though, because they allow you to tap your creatures to crew them. So Cultivator's Caravan is a mana rock that has crew 3.
Yep.
Smuggler's Copter. I found this card, any excuse you can to put it in the deck, it's always going to be good because it's a looter. It's very, very cheap. It's going to get in there for a decent amount of damage and has crew 1. So it's always like really, really good value piece and does a ton of work. And then, okay, let's talk about the backside go wide.
So
that rhymed. Now I know why you put that down there.
Right?
Backside go wide.
I had a plan the whole time. But when Prowl is a vehicle, he wants to have lots of creatures ETB, so he gets lots of those counters on him and then can kind of hit it on the other side. There's a lot of things that are good for that, but a couple examples. One I like a lot is Abdel Adrian, Gorian's Ward, which is 4 and a white. This is from the new Baldur's Gate set, and it is a 4/4 legendary creature, human warrior. And when Abdel Adrian, Gorian's Ward, we said it wrong at one point. It's Gorian, not Gorian.
Okay.
When he enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-land permanents you control until Abdel Adrian leaves the battlefield. Create a 1/1 white soldier creature token for each permanent exiled this way. And this is cool because then you can flicker him again and all those things will come back. You'll get all their ETBs. It also made a lot of things into the battlefield, like those tokens. I think this just plays very well.
It's actually doing both sides too, right?
Yep.
It's flickering blinking stuff and it's making tokens, which is what our deck wants to do. It's hard to find cards that care about both of those things.
Right.
Yeah. The next one you listed is Starnheim Unleashed, 2 white for a sorcery. Create a 4/4 white angel warrior creature token with flying and vigilance. If this spell was foretold, create X of those creature tokens instead, and it has foretell for white XX. So if you put 5 mana, you get 2. 7 mana will get 3.
It's not the best rate, but they're angels.
Yeah.
Like, they are powerful.
What's the miracle one?
Entreat the angels.
Right. Yeah. You probably want that one.
Yeah, that one's really good too.
It's a little bit more efficient.
This last one is from the most recent Unfinity set, and I think is like kind of spicy.
Doesn't have an acorn on it, so let's hear it.
This is Clown Car, which just costs X. It is an artifact vehicle that is just a 1/1, and when Clown Car enters the battlefield, roll X 6-sided dice. For each odd result, create a 1/1 white clown robot artifact creature token. For each even result, put a +1/+1 counter on Clown Car. And then it has crew 2. But what it practically does is gives you about 50% of X as creatures and then comes in as...
So if you pay 6 into this, you'll probably get 3 1/1s.
Yeah.
That's what you can count on. Yeah, and it's interesting because this interacts with Prowl's ability in a way that Blink Flicker usually doesn't. Because it says, play the card.
Yeah.
So an X spell, you actually are going to pay mana, and so as the game goes on, you'll have more mana to pay, and it kind of gets better. Whereas normally, if you blink or flicker like a walking ballista, well, it just comes back and it has X equal to 0 because you're not actually casting it.
So if you're just like, I mean, imagine you have an Ashnod's Altar or something, and you're doing something where you attack with Prowl and exile the clown car and flip the thing back and then sacrifice all the clowns that you had made before to play the clown car for a bigger thing, make a bunch of clowns, flip him back over with a bunch of tokens on it.
Again, yeah. That's pretty interesting. Congratulations, we broke Ashnod's Altar. No, that is cool, though. I like that interaction. Okay, and then we have an interesting note here, which is exile aggressively, because we don't want to ignore the fact that you can exile your opponent's things, and I think it will often be right to do so. Because just think of the tempo hit of like a 6 and 8 mana thing. Yeah. That's just brutal. You attack, sure, they can cast it again, and you're like, fine, but I time walked you. Yeah. You know? Now, the thing has to be tapped.
When you cast it, I get a card. That's nice.
Yeah, you're going to force me to convert my Prowl. Yeah. If I do that to your thing, they get the card. But still, I think it's going to be correct to do that sometimes. Yes. And then you can play some cards that'll make that a little bit worse for them. Make you more likely maybe to exile their thing. So Aerial Extortionist is 3 white for a 4/3 flying bird soldier. Whenever it enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may cast it. But it says whenever another player casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, draw a card. So this just means that when they cast their card from exile, off Prowl or off the Extortionist, you will draw a card. Extortionist. I'm used to saying that Dockside before I say that. Yeah. So my brain just malfunctioned for a second.
Well, and if they cast the one off of Prowl, you're drawing 2 cards off of it.
Right. And this card just actually is kind of good because anything with flashback or things like that.
And there's more and more commanders that are casting things from Exile.
Underworld Breach, and there's all kinds of...
all the impulsive draw.
Yep. So this will just draw you cards over the course of the game, but also interacts cool with what Prowl's doing. And then you can be mean.
Drannith Magistrate. This is just 1 and a white for a 1/3 human wizard, and it says, your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands.
Yeah. Just, if you play this card, they're going to try and all kill you because they can't cast their commanders now.
It's tough.
Yeah. So just make sure you're ready for the whirlwind when you do that. But yeah, definitely will make it harder to cast the cards you've exiled with Prowl. I don't think they're going to care as much about that as their commanders, though. Okay. Yeah, this card... I think it's cool. It's tugging you in 2 different directions, and I find these commanders to generally end up not being that powerful because it's hard to balance the 2 parts, and sometimes you draw one half of the deck and not the other, and the whole thing just kind of doesn't work. So just be careful.
I'm interested to see it in action, but it does seem difficult.
Yeah. Yep. All right, the next one is Goldbug, Humanity's Ally. And we'll discuss why it's not called Bumblebee in a second, but it's all about IP rights.
Bumblebee, though.
Yeah, this is Bumblebee. Is this what Bumblebee was called originally?
No. So Bumblebee was called Bumblebee originally. And I've tried to figure out why they have decided to call him Goldbug.
I'm pretty sure I know why, but why did they... Like, I know why they chose to do it, but where did they get the name Goldbug?
I think Goldbug was a name...
is this just like a translation that you could make?
I think it's one that it was like... Bumblebee was granted the name Goldbug for like some task he got. This is from a very little bit of Wikipedia searching for it, but...
My guess is that name is owned by like a movie studio or something.
You know what I think it actually is? I think they still own Bumblebee, but I think that since they were doing the Shattered Glass versions, I've been told that Goldbug is relevant in Shattered Glass, but Bumblebee is not. So if they wanted to have
that's the reason. Like they would still do Bumblebee because people would know that character.
Yeah.
My guess is this is all IP rights. They probably sold off the part of the rights that were like, you know, if it's not a toy or these certain designations, then it's owned by another property.
It is odd because Bumblebee is definitely like one of the most popular, if not the most popular Transformer.
It's the only Transformer that has a movie named after it. The rest of the movies are all just named Transformers. Yeah. Okay. Goldbug, Humanity's Ally, 1 white blue for a 3/3 robot. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking humans you control. And then whenever you cast your second spell each turn, convert Goldbug. Has more than meets the eye for just a white and a blue, so you can play it on its backside for just 2 mana. The backside is Goldbug, Scrappy Scout. A 1/3 vehicle with living metal. Human spells you control can't be countered, and whenever Goldbug and at least 1 human attack, draw a card and convert Goldbug. So that's pretty cool because on the attack, you draw the card, you convert, and your human is protected from damage because you get that prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking humans you control. But Goldbug won't be protected.
No, Goldbug's the one thing that's unsafe if you have a bunch of humans out there.
But it's a 3/3. So hopefully we'll be okay.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about some synergies, but it's not going to be a very interesting discussion because humans is just kind of a known thing.
This is sort of a solved problem. Like, if you want to find a bunch of stuff that will probably go very well for Goldbug, go on EDH Rec Rank and go to their Human Tribal tab and just kind of see what the best blue and white cards are there.
Yeah, you're going to see Thalio's Lieutenant, Champion of the Parish.
Yep.
Adeline, Resplendent Cathar. A lot of the good humans are going to be in white. Blue has some good support, like tribal stuff. So like Kindred Discovery.
Good in any tribe, but and also cheaper now than it was very recently because of the reprint.
Yep.
Really
Mass
nice.
Appeal is a good find that you had, which is 2 and a blue for a sorcery. It says draw a card for each human you control.
Yeah, just a really powerful card draw spell that will also help you do the casting more than one because, you need to refill your hand if you're going to cast more than one a turn.
Yeah, speaking of double spelling, there's some cards that will sort of help you do that, or a couple cards that will even reward you for doing it. So there's the Council of 4, which is 3 blue-white, so 5 mana for a 0/8 Human Noble legendary. Whenever a player draws their second card during their turn, you draw a card. And then whenever a player casts their second spell during their turn, you create a 2/2 White Knight creature token.
Yeah, and it's whenever a player. So when you do it, you are rewarded for it, which is great.
And you'll also get incidental value off your opponents for sure.
Yep, pretty nice. And obviously also a human.
Yep.
So works with everything else. Besides that, there's also just kind of the tribal cost reducers, which cost reducers are particularly good if you're trying to double spell because, you can get that more than once. So Herald's Horn, which is just 3 mana for Herald's Horn to the battlefield, choose a creature type, and then you just choose humans, and creature spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. And it also has at the beginning of your library, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it into your hand.
Beginning of your upkeep, you meant. Yep.
Oh, yes.
So it can help you find humans, and it discounts your humans. Urza's Incubator is similar. You choose a creature type, and it makes those creature spells cost 2 less.
Yeah.
So you can do sort of the Ethereum Sculptor, Foundry Inspector type of thing, but for humans.
Yep.
Goldbug says when you cast your second spell each turn, convert it. So you're kind of going to be using that to protect it in some instances when it's on the one side. And so I thought Vidalcan Orrery and a Leyline might be good as well to be able to just at instant speed. If you have mana open, they go to remove Goldbug. It's tough if you've got a flash on all your creatures. You go, okay, cool. And humans tend to cost very little. Play 2 spells, flip them over, protect it. Yeah. All right. The next one is RC, Sharpshooter. RC spelled ARCEE. Not like the cola. Is RC Cola still around?
I think so.
Okay.
It's like regional most of the time now.
All right. RC Sharpshooter. 1 red-white for a 2/2 legendary robot. Has first strike. You can pay 1 and remove 1 or more 1/1 counters from RC. It deals that much damage to target creature. Convert RC.
But Josh, how do you get the counters on RC?
That's interesting. The backside of RC is Acrobatic Coupe. It's a 2/2 vehicle with living metal. Whenever you cast a spell that targets 1 or more creatures or vehicles you control, put that many 1/1 counters on RC and convert RC. That many. Is that as many?
That's as many
creatures as you target?
As we're targeted, yeah.
So you target creatures you control, and you're trying to target a lot of creatures with 1 spell or a few spells, and you get that many 1/1 counters on RC. Interesting. Has more than meets the eye for a red and a white. So it's only 2 mana if you want to play it on its vehicle side first, which you definitely do because the front side doesn't do anything until you get 1/1 counters on it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about some spells, because the first step is get some creatures and stuff out, I guess, but that doesn't seem too hard. And the second step is you want to play spells that are cheap that target many things.
Yes.
So you can get a lot of counters on RC for very little.
So it sort of reminds me of like the Feather style archetype.
Right.
But
Zada.
Yeah, stuff that wants to hit your own thing. But
Orvar's in blue, obviously.
But it's different. It's a little interesting. A couple really neat cards.
These first 2 cards, I remember the picture from one of them, but I've never played one of these cards.
Yeah.
I've never cast them.
I will admit I pulled this from a Reddit thread, and when I first saw it, I was like, what? Why would you play these cards? And
but
then I was
makes sense.
Oh, right. And this is Heaven's Gate and Dwarven Song, and they kind of both do the same thing. I'll just read Heaven's Gate, which is white, and it changes the color of one or more target creatures to white until end of turn. You choose which and how many creatures are affected. Cost to tap, maintain, or use a special ability of target creatures remain entirely unchanged. So it just changes.
We clearly weren't reading the Oracle text. Yeah, that's the actual card from Legends.
Yeah.
It's 1 white for an instant.
And
you can target as many things as you want.
As many things as you want.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Dwarven Song. But Dwarven Song is just red and turns things red instead of the other thing.
Back in the day, they were very enamored with the color of things. There was a lot more color hosers.
Yeah, you could kill only a red thing or something like that.
But there's a white version and a red version, instant, target as many of your things as you want.
But what this does is lets you have as many targets as you can make, and then that puts that many counters on RC.
So if you've got 5 creatures, you're going to pay 1 white to get 5 1/1 counters on RC. Cool. There's also other cards that are a little more expensive, but also do better things for you, like Eerie Interlude, exile any number of target creatures you control, return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. This is a way to rebuy ETBs and things like that, but it would also, hey, I'm going to target, these 5 of my creatures or 3 of my creatures and not RC and get the counters on RC. Semester's End, exile any number of target creatures that are planeswalkers you control at the beginning of the next end step. Return each of them to the battlefield under its owner's control. Each of them enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it if it's a creature and a loyalty counter on it if it's a planeswalker.
Yep. There really aren't as many cards as I kind of thought there would be if you look around that have
target
any number of targets.
Yeah.
There's a lot that have stuff that you can pay to keep increasing the
launch the fleet. Yeah.
Launch the fleet sort of stuff. I think launch the fleet's kind of one of the best ones because you only have to pay 1 for each additional target, whereas most of the other ones cost more than that.
They get a lot worse as you have to pay mana though, because it really limits the number of things that you can target.
Yep.
So yeah, the free ones are going to be best. I think a lot of this part of this equation is the spell that's going to target the things, but the other part of the equation is what are you targeting? Because just getting 1/1 counters on RC is not good enough.
No,
that's a cool payoff. And you're going to get some utility at getting some removal out of it. RC can't even shoot the counters at a player. It's only at a creature. So, it's limited the value you're getting. So you really need the things you're targeting to also want to be targeted and pay you off for that. So there's the heroic mechanic.
And this one doesn't technically have the term heroic, I don't think, but 10th District Legionnaire, which is a red and a white Boros for a 2/2 human soldier with haste, and whenever you cast a spell that targets 10th District Legionnaire, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then scry 1. So that just helps you kind of roll through your deck.
Yeah,
cards you need.
That's a more fair one. I think a Crone Crusader, which does have heroic, is
pretty
quite good. It's a 1 red for a 1/1. When you cast a spell that targets it, create a 1/1 soldier creature token, which gives you another. Oh, and the token has haste, which gives you another thing to then target with subsequent spells, which give more 1/1 counters to RC. Phalanx Leader pairs really well with the Crone Crusader because whenever you cast a spell that targets it, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control.
So that can just start building out a whole board, which will get bigger and wider.
I mean, if you just start with those 2 creatures and you were to cast Heaven's Gate. Does RC count itself? Yeah.
It does.
So you go Heaven's Gate, 1 white mana, targeting all 3 of my creatures. I make a soldier. I put a 1/1 counter on the soldier, a Crane Crusader, Phalanx Leader, RC, and then RC gets 3 counters on it.
And then the opponent plays Circle of Protection white, and you can't do anything about it.
Just for this turn.
Yeah.
And that's just 1 spell. That's a lot of value if you can do that. There's also creatures that don't care about being targeted, but they care about you casting non-creature spells or instants and sorceries. So Monastery Mentor, Young Pyromancer will both make tokens when you cast spells.
Which gives you more things to target, again.
And then Monastery Mentor has prowess, and so do the tokens it makes.
So they're going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, then there's stuff like Gutter Snipe, which just deals 2 damage to each opponent when you cast an instant or sorcery. So I think if you have enough of those creatures, then you don't you're still going to want, a good suite of 18 to 22 targeting spells.
Yeah.
But you don't need 40 of them. Maybe you don't even need 18 to 22. It might be 15 or something. Because, again, RC is not your win con because it can't point damage at players. What it's doing is removing key things, but the rest of your Monastery Mentor or Crone Crusader Phalanx Leader combo is really what's going to finish the game because you're going to be cool, cast 4 spells, everything's huge, and I have a lot of stuff.
And I really don't think the way that you end up winning this game is casting a spell that targets everyone every turn.
Yeah.
Or something like that, because it's just hard to pull off. There just aren't that many out there.
Yeah. You could also play Feather the redeemed Zada Hedron Grinder in these decks, which will be good because you're targeting things and it's already they want to do the same stuff. Mavinda Student's Advocate is also in a similar vein.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. It lets you get a recast of those spells. And because it's the way Mavinda works is you can cast spells from your graveyard, and it costs 0 to do it if they're spells that target your own things, and it costs way more if it's some other spell, but it's going to be good for the stuff you play in this.
You basically don't want it. It's basically saying you can recast spells from your graveyard, but if you're targeting your opponent's stuff, it's really expensive. You can't do it. Yeah. And then, of course, RC, I like this. To ping is the thing. RC is dealing the damage. So this all becomes a lot better if it has Death Touch.
Yep.
So Basilisk Collar, Gorgon's Head, all of a sudden, 1 mana, remove 1/1/1 counter, kill a thing. So if I got 4 mana, kill 4 things, that seems really, really good.
And then if you can pull off the Death Touch, one thing I really like the idea of is getting Torolf, God of Fury, out too. Because then you can do 1 activation with RC. And let's say you have 5 counters on RC. You pay 1, you do the activation, you remove 5 counters, you hit something. It only takes 1 to kill it. So that's 4 excess damage, which you can then chain onto someone else. So you could really turn RC into just a completely how you want it board wipe, which is pretty nice.
Yep. That's pretty cool. So yeah, it just makes it cost less mana, basically.
Yep.
It would be 4, instead of 4 mana to kill 4 things, it would be 1 mana to kill 4 things. Or 5. All right. Yeah, I think RC is interesting. Doesn't seem like it's going to be incredibly powerful. Of course, there's the counter synergy. We won't talk about all that stuff again. Optimus was very similar. So look at, play together forever. And
I think I
and
could
Ozolith,
I think I could see RC being a really good piece in like an Optimus Prime deck or a Feather deck.
Right.
Like when you're going to be having a way to keep getting those cards back and doing it over and over again, she's a nice little piece of repeated removal.
All right. We've got 2 more to go. And the next one I think is the most powerful of the bunch. I don't know if you agree.
Which is funny because there's almost no like people brewing with it on EDH.
Yeah, when we looked on EDH Rec, I think there were 0 decks built around this.
But I think it's very powerful.
Yeah, it's Jetfire, Ingenious Scientist, 4 and a blue for a 3/4, has flying. Sorry, legendary artifact creature robot. Remove 1 or more +1/+1 counters from among artifacts you control. Target player adds that much colorless mana, diamond mana. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. So it's Power Stone mana, basically. And then the backside is Jetfire Air Guardian. 3/4 legendary vehicle with living metal, has flying. And you can pay blue, and convert Jetfire and then adapt 3. And that means if it has no 1/1 counters on it, put 3 1/1 counters on it. So in a vacuum, you can pay 3 mana to flip it back over to and make it a 6/7 flyer that you can remove the 3 counters for to get 3 Power Stone mana. It has more than meets the eye for 3 and a blue, so you can play it on its backside for 4 mana. And this strikes me as one that I definitely want to play on the front side most of the time because that is the powerful side. Although
you don't have any counters on it.
Well, if you're relying on the adapt as the way to get counters, you're not doing it right.
Sure.
Most of your other cards are going to be providing the counters, and then you're going to be using the mana off the counters to sort of gain a profit, like pay less for whatever got you more counters that you remove to pay for something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of baseline level of this stuff is those X spells that are artifacts that come in with X/1/1 counters or some version of that. So like Stone Coil Serpent.
Stone Coil Serpent is basically just like you can save that mana up, use it later. It's like store all your mana. Next turn, you pull it off to cast some other huge X spell or something like that.
Very powerful, and you don't have to remove all the counters from Stone Coil Serpent so that you can sort of keep it around for other shenanigans later. So it's just X for an XX, and then it has Reach, Trample, Protection for multicolored. But if you pay 5, it's a 5/5 with has 5 counters, but you can remove 4 of them for 4 mana later.
Yep,
which I think is quite powerful. Walking Ballista is XX for an XX. Everybody knows this card because it's a win con in a lot of decks. But you can remove counters to deal 1 damage to any target, and you can pay 4 to put a counter on it. So this is, I think, a win con in this deck, but also going to be very powerful as just an enabler.
Okay, imagine this.
Okay.
If it has 4 counters on it, it has 5 counters on it, you can remove 4 of those counters to make 4 mana and put 1 counter on Walking Ballista.
Yep, you can definitely do that.
Yep.
There's stuff like Steel Overseer. You're going to have mostly artifact creatures, and you tap it to put a 1/1 counter on each artifact creature you control. Just imagine you have like 5 artifact creatures, and it counts itself.
Yeah, and you probably are going to want to be having a lot of artifact creatures in this deck because you can cast them with the mana.
I mean, even if you just have Stone Coil Serpent, Steel Overseer, and Jetfire, you tap it, You put 3 counters on things. You just tapped it for 3 mana.
That's great.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's Katsumasa the Animator. This is an interesting one. You want to read it?
It's not an artifact itself, but it's 2 blue for a legendary creature, Moonfolk Artificer, who's a 3/3, and it has flying. And then it has the activated ability 2 and a blue until end of turn. Target non-creature artifact you control becomes an artifact creature and gains flying. If it's not a vehicle, it has base power and toughness 1/1 until end of turn. So that can make things that aren't artifacts into artifacts. But then it also has, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 3 target non-creature artifacts. Which in this is sort of just generating 3 mana for you.
Yeah, at the beginning of your upkeep, gain 3 mana.
Yeah.
It's pretty nuts.
Which you don't have to use right then. You can save it up and do it later.
So blue's not known as a +1/+1 counter color, really. That's usually white and green. And even red, I'd say, has about the same interaction with 1/1 counters as blue does. But blue has Proliferate.
A lot of Proliferate.
Which is a really great tool in the 1/1 counter toolbox. So Thrumming Bird is a 1/1 flyer that when it deals combat damage to a player, Proliferate. Again, if you only have like 3 or 4 creatures, but they all have 1/1 counters, that means Thrumming Bird, when it hits a player, gives you 3 or 4 mana. Karn's Bastion, Contagion, Clasp, those are all Proliferate cards that you could play in the deck. Viral Drake is a really interesting one.
Yeah, I like this a lot.
You pointed out. Yeah, so it's 3 and a blue for a 1/4 flying infect, but you pay 3 and a blue and Proliferate. So this is one where you could go infinite.
Yeah, you would need something to filter the mana.
Yeah.
So that you could turn your colorless blue. But if you have enough creatures that have counters on them, when you're proliferating, you could easily be creating...
All you need is 5 creatures with a counter on it.
Yeah.
And now you're up 1 mana every time you do it. Again, you have to be able to filter the mana, which we'll talk about later. But Viral Drake definitely doesn't seem super hard to go infinite if you want to.
And even if you're not worried about going infinite, it can just create you a lot of value.
Right. But I mean, let's talk about it going infinite, because I think this card is it's not going to be super hard to go infinite. And there's an interesting thing you discovered while sort of researching this card, Jordan.
What?
Yeah, let me read really quick
his ability again.
Yeah, because I was assuming it's a mana ability. It says remove 1 or more +1/+1 counters from among artifacts you control. Target player adds that much colorless mana. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. So I didn't even think of the fact that you could give this mana to someone else.
And that was the first thing that we was trying to find, like, a way to make that a disadvantage or hurt somebody.
It's hard to come up with ways where I give you mana is bad for you.
Fine. You can play this group hug. You're allowed to do that. Just give other people ways to draw cards and stuff like that. I couldn't find any way to, like, hurt people with that mana.
Yeah.
I know that there's stuff that's like when they tap lands for mana, it hurts them and stuff like that. But what was really interesting is I found out that because this targets, it's not a mana ability. Because mana abilities can't target, because abilities that target can be fizzled and stuff like that. And that's not how mana abilities work. So that means,
all of a sudden opens it up to all the cards that say, this works except for on mana abilities.
Except for on mana abilities. Things like Rings of Brighthearth, which you can pay 2 mana, and whenever an ability is activated, you can pay 2 mana, and it will double that ability, which suddenly lets you pay 2 mana to double how much mana you are making on something, which can be a very, very strong effect.
Yeah, let's say you have 5 or 6 counters on something, you take them all off, and then you pay 2 mana, and it's like, instead of 5 mana, I get 10 mana.
Yeah.
Instead of 6 mana, I get 12 mana. Yeah. Lithoform Engine can do the same thing.
Yeah, it has...
Copy target activated or triggered ability control. You may choose new targets for the copy.
Yep.
Illusionist Bracers is a really big one.
This is the easiest one. This is my favorite, too.
So it's 2 mana for an equipment, 3 to equip. Whenever an ability of an equipped creature is activated, if it isn't a mana ability, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a way to just... all the counters are sort of doubled. Yeah. And that with the adapt is where we can kind of go nuts, as long as we have a filter, right?
So the 2 obvious filters that kind of came to mind were Chromatic Orrery and Mycosynth Lattice. Those are the ones that just let you spin mana as though it were mana of any color. Then you can have the equipped Illusionist Bracers. With the 3 counters that are on it, remove those 3 counters. It will make you 6 mana. You flip it to the back. You pay 3 mana in the blue to adapt it.
Because it has no more counters because you took them off.
And you're gold.
Yeah, you pay 3 to get 6.
You're back where you started, and you have more.
3 to get 6, yeah.
Yeah.
This is going to be done with the new Energy Refractor.
Yeah, it's a little harder on that because Energy Refractor, you still have to pay 2 and add 1 mana of any color.
Oh, so this is more good with Viral Drake than it is for the Adapt on Jetfire.
Yeah, so it does. So both Crossroads, Candle Guide, and Energy Refractor, like things that have the ability to add 1 mana of any color, what they let you do is go infinite, but without any addition. Like you flip him and do the thing over and over. So if you can find one way to add 1 more counter than you did before, or some way to kind of break that parity, lower the activated costs of things.
Well, it also filters the mana through into usable on not on regular spells.
That's true.
Right, because this takes 2 mana, puts it into an activated ability, which spits out a mana that isn't Power Stone mana anymore.
Yeah, well, that's why I like these cards just as includes on their own, even if it's not part of some, like, infinite thing.
Right, because with Chromatic Orrery, it doesn't actually change the restriction on the mana. It just says you can use it as lower mana of any color, so you still couldn't use that to cast regular spells.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then the question kind of becomes like, okay, so I can create either infinite or just a lot of mana, and that seems like Jetfire's not going to have that much problem doing that. What do I do with that mana? How do I turn that into a win?
Yeah.
Especially since you can't count on having Energy Refractor, so you might be in a situation where it is going to be restricted mana. It's going to be a little bit hard to use. You're going to have to use it on artifacts or activated abilities. So this is a card that you mentioned you've been playing a lot.
This is sort of a pet card of mine recently from the new 40k set, and that is Sicarian Infiltrator. It is 2 and a blue for a 1/2 artifact creature human soldier with Flash. Flash is great. And it has Squad 2, which basically just means for each 2 mana you also pay into it, you make a copy of it, and then when Sicarian Infiltrator enters the battlefield, you draw a card.
So infinite mana plus this means draw my whole deck, make, however many, don't miscalculate, but make, 70 of these.
Right.
And then with my whole deck in my hand and infinite mana, if I can find out a way to win there, my deck was probably not built correctly.
And you can cast
because you're going to find your Energy Refractor or something, your Chromatic Orrery in there, and then you're going to be able to, manufacture a win from that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Triskaidekaphile?
Triskaidekaphile is 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human wizard. It says you have no maximum hand size. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have exactly 13 cards in your hand, you win the game, but it just has an activated ability of 3 and a blue, draw a card. So with infinite mana, infinite draws.
Maybe a little tougher to pull off because,
I feel like it's not as good because you'll also need the blue.
Yeah.
So I don't want my thing that's going to draw my entire deck to need the blue. I think Staff of Domination is probably just better in that case. And it is an artifact. It's 3 mana for an artifact. It has a bajillion abilities, but the big one is 5 tap it, draw a card, and 1 to untap it.
Yep.
So you can just... And it also has 2 to gain 1 life. So you can say, okay, cool, I got infinite mana, filtering it through the Staff of Domination. I'm going to draw my whole deck and have infinite life. And then the infinite life doesn't matter because once you've drawn your whole deck, one of those cards is probably Walking Ballista. So then you go, okay, cool, cast Walking Ballista with 100 million counters on it, and then
take them all off and
make more mana.
Ping.
Oh, right.
Oh, right, yeah. No, wait, I like what you're going with here.
So yeah, I think this card is going to be very powerful because anytime you are turning one resource, a resource the game lets you build a lot of, into mana, it just feels very easy to break.
Well, if there's anything that mono blue tends to struggle with, it's ramp. And this is really powerful ramp card. Very powerful ramp card.
Yeah, because you can play just all these creatures, like even the modular creatures that just come in with counters, and you're just playing those as almost rituals or like mana rocks. Yeah.
You know what modular creatures make me think of?
Yeah, good segue. Man!
They make me think of the next Autobot we are talking about here, which is Blaster, Combat DJ. Well, just Blaster in general. He's got 2 sides. But Blaster is... on the front side, Blaster Combat DJ. He is 3, a red and a green for a 3/3 legendary artifact creature robot. And it has other non-token artifact creatures and vehicles you control have modular 1. And then whenever you put one or more 1/1 counter on Blaster, convert it. And modular 1, I know we kind of mentioned it before, but basically just means they enter the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on them. And then when they die, you may put their 1/1 counters on target artifact creature. And then on his backside, Blaster is Blaster Morale Booster, and he's a boombox. He's one of the only ones who's...
There's 2. There's 1 Decepticon, 1 Autobot that are not vehicles, and this is the 1 Autobot.
He's just a legendary artifact, which does make him like even harder to target. And on his backside, he has modular 3, and then he has the ability X tap. Move X +1/+1 counters from Blaster onto another target artifact. That artifact gains haste until end of turn. Nice. And then if Blaster has no 1/1 counters on it, convert it. Activate only as a sorcery.
So you really want to play this on the backside, so you get the 3/1/1 counters when it comes in, and then use those 3/1/1 counters to put on something else, flip it over. This is Gruul, artifact creatures plus 1/1 counters, Gruul modular. It's likely to be pretty aggressive.
Yeah, the haste is a really nice little addition to everything that's going on there.
The fact that it's not a vehicle on the backside, I think, is a bonus. Is way harder to kill on its backside.
Yeah, and it also means that you can use sacking a modular creature and putting the counter on the front side to flip it and fizzle a spell, or I don't know, some sort of counters combat trick you have to flip him and fizzle something.
It also means even on your turn you play it is not subject to instant speed creature removal.
Yep.
Until you're ready to kind of use the other side, which I think will be early in the game. Because one thing that's easy to miss about this card is it gives modular 1, but if a creature already has modular, it's not cumulative in the way that you would think. Or it is cumulative, I suppose. So if let's look at Arcbound Stinger, which is a 2-mana flyer with modular 1. So it's a 0/0 with modular 1, comes in with a 1/1 counter on it. If Combat DJ, I guess it's Blaster. I'm calling him DJ because DJ from Jumbo Commander. DJ, by the way, you have to build this deck now. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's required.
If Blaster is out and you play Arcbound Stinger, it will have modular 1 twice. So it will come in with 2 1/1 counters on it. That also means when it dies, both modulars trigger.
So it puts the number of counters on it on something else twice.
So Arcbound Stinger becomes a 2/2 flyer that when it dies puts 4 counters on another artifact creature.
Or 2 counters on 2 different creatures.
Right. That doubling exponential effect.
That's good enough in my mind to just run as many modular creatures as you can in this deck.
Yeah, so, Arcbound Tracker is a 2 and a red for a 0/0 menace modular 2. Whenever you cast a spell other than your first spell each turn, it gets a 1/1 counter on it. Arcbound Reclaimer is a modular 2, 4-mana modular 2 creature that says remove a 1/1 counter from it, put a target artifact card from your graveyard on top of your library.
Seems great.
And then, of course, Arcbound Ravager, which we already said was the best card in a couple of these decks, will be the best card in this deck.
It is mind-blowing in this deck. It is so good.
Because you think of the Arcbound Ravager and 3 modular creatures with Blaster out. You sack the Arcbound Stinger, put a counter on Arcbound Ravager because of its ability, put 4 counters on it because of the Arcbound Stinger. You sack another modular creature, put a counter on Arcbound Ravager, put 6 counters on Ravager because of the modular. And now you sack the Ravager and you say, oh, it had 13 counters on it. I'm going to put 26 counters onto Blaster, you're dead.
Completely
you can do that during
nuts.
combat, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's how these modular decks get you. If you got 4 modular creatures or 4 artifact creatures, a couple are modular and one of them is Arcbound Ravager, they just go, okay, attack. And you go, I got 3 creatures. I'm not going to block that one. Cool. I'll sack all the rest, put all the counters on the one you didn't block. You're dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Really, really good. And then I know we have this listed a little later in the thing, but this sort of combo works amazingly with the Ozolith.
Yeah.
Because when you...
it works with all this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. But the Ozolith in particular, because, it puts the 2 double modular creatures will put it twice on something, and then it still goes on the Ozolith.
Oh, right. Interesting. Because, the modular is its own, it tracks its own thing separately than the Ozolith. So the Ozolith says, when it dies, how many counters does it have? Put that many on the Ozolith.
Yep.
But the modular says, yeah, cool. How many did you have? Put it on that creature over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course, green is the best 1/1 counter color. So you get hardened scales. So each instance of modular is now 2, right? So you have modular 1 twice. The Arcbound Stinger is going to actually be a 4/4 flyer when it comes in. Yeah. Branching Evolution, which doubles the number of counters. Evolution Sage, every time you play a land, proliferate.
Really, it's going to get out of hand.
Doubling Season, again, this is almost the worst of these because it costs the motion. And honestly doesn't do that much more than Hardened Scales.
Yeah.
Still doubles the counters for Ozolith and Modular and all the rest of it.
Steel Overseer is just going to be...
Man, Steel Overseer is good in all these decks.
This is a great time for Steel Overseer.
Steel Overseer loves the Transformers, as it turns out.
Yeah.
And then we also wanted to mention that don't forget, 1/1 counters do make your creatures into modified creatures. Mm-hmm. So there's some good interaction here. Kodama of the West Tree allow you to ramp every time you hit somebody. Gives it all trample, which maybe is more important. Invigorating Hot Spring gives them all haste and gives you more counters and a little more utility.
Yep.
Chishiro, which was Posty's Neon Dynasty commander, gives you more 1/1 counters when you've got modified creatures. It basically adds 1 to them at the end of each turn.
And obviously, this deck can be built so that each of those 1/1 counters is actually 2 or 5.
Yeah.
Or...
By the time you sack, it becomes 8 by the end of that one.
Yeah.
And then the key to all this, and Arcbound Ravager, the reason it's good is because it has it all in that package. But if you don't have that card out, you need to be able to sack your creatures when you want to move the counters around. And, well, it's not going to be hard because green and red are both good at it. So Greater Good.
Greater Good is insane.
So good because
just insane.
If you have a big creature because you put enough counters on it, you sack it to Greater Good, which says sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to the sacrifice creature's power, then discard 3 cards. If it's got 6 power, 8 power, you're drawing 6 to 8 cards and discarding 3.
Yeah.
And then you still with modular take all those twice and put them onto another creature that's now twice as big as the creature you just sacked, and you go, I'm going to sack this new creature because now I'm going to draw 16 and discard 3.
You could I don't necessarily know if there's a way to go infinite off of that, but I bet with very little trouble you could draw your whole deck with.
True. It's like, by the end of that,
good.
you might not. You're like, well, I have a 27 attack, and they're like, okay, chump block it, or I guess it'd be like an 80 power creature.
Right.
Yeah. Goblin Bombardment's a really good one. Altar of Dementia, I think, a legit win con for sure in a deck like this, because that's okay, this has 6 counters on it. Sack it, mill you for 6. Put 12 counters over here. Sack it, mill you for 12. Put 24 counters over here. Sack it, mill you for 24. I mean, the next one's going to kill you.
Yeah. It's huge.
I love when you have the whole table just sort of by the throat with Altar of Dementia, where you're just like, listen, I can't mill you all out, but I can mill any one of you out. So the next person that does anything, dead.
This is the sort of deck where you're going to sit down and be like, all right, you might notice I have 5 creatures on the board. That means some math is about to happen.
Oh, yeah, this is definitely going to be one of those, big brain moments.
Pulling out the calculator for some of the stuff that's going on here.
Okay. And then, of course, it's still going to be subject to... We called this the Whack and Sack, which was the Greater Good Goblin Bombardment, not so much Altar of Dementia. But also, there are a bunch of Sac Outlets that synergize particularly with artifacts that are going to be really good. Goblin Welder, Goblin Engineer.
Both of these are kind of nuts.
Yeah, let you find certain things, put them in your graveyard, then bring stuff back from your graveyard.
Yeah.
And again, you're sacking your artifacts, so bringing them back. Scrap Trawler is going to be another one where it's just with modular and Scrap Trawler, it's going to get out of control so fast.
Absolutely.
Just because you're just going to need a number of things to move the counters, because every time you move the counters, you're going to double them. So it's just move it to here, but when I sack that, this comes back, which gives me another thing to move these to, and when I sack that thing, this comes back. So, yeah. Scrap Trawler. What a card.
Really good.
That's another card that causes a lot of math, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Beautiful Mind Mode engaged. It's going to be
and it's got a cool new reprint in the Brothers War set.
Oh, yeah. So, geez. All right. So, yeah, I think Blaster's pretty cool and definitely going to knock some people out early and out of nowhere.
I love Blaster. Anytime that you get to start doing exponential tricks with things, I think it's exciting. So...
All right, let's wrap this thing up because I got to be honest, the couch is not as comfortable as those chairs.
No, there's no back support.
Yeah, it's a little bit
we put
brutal.
some cushions behind us.
We were going to lean back, but we look... And there's no way to get the mics here. We sound... yeah, sorry.
They probably don't even know what we said there.
They're like, what? Why'd you get so echoey? All right, to the listeners, what do you think of these new Autobot commanders from the Brothers War? Are you planning to build any of them? Are there any synergy cards or cool combos that we missed? Let us know in the comments, Twitter, on our Discord, wherever you usually talk to us. We'd love to hear what you got. And then, of course, if you want to get your hands on these cards, the best place to go is cardkingdom.com/command. They are going to get you your Brothers War product, your Infinity product, your 40K product, your Dominaria United product, your All Will Be One product faster than anybody else. Spoiler alert, All Will Be One is not out yet. I'm not saying Card Kingdom can get you that quite yet. But when it's out, they will get it to you super fast.
Yep.
And like I always say, if you want to build one of these decks, you got excited about it. Both Jordan and I did as we were going through this exercise, I want to get my hands on those cards right now and be playing that deck as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. It's the worst when you're order and it's it's not going to get here probably for a week and a half.
Man.
Yeah, I want it in a couple of days.
Where are my cards?
Yeah, and we're around the holidays now. A lot of times we're buying gifts for friends. If you're getting, somebody some Brothers War, maybe Commander decks or something like that.
I know. I've started making it a thing where I build a cheap Commander deck for my brother for Christmas most years. Which is
so that's a thing where if you're like me, I don't always do that months in advance. Because I'm not good at like thinking ahead like that. And then you get down to the wire, and it's really nice to have a place that you can trust will get you your stuff when they say they will. Because there's nothing worse than it's the holidays and you don't have their gift ready yet. You're like, I swear I ordered it and it'll be here in a couple of days. That just feels bad. So cardkingdom.com/command, you can trust them to ship your stuff out in great condition and really, really fast. And then, of course, once you get those cards, you want to keep them in good condition. Ultra Pro is the game accessories brand that Jimmy and we trust our own collections to. Eclipse sleeves, Satin Tower deck boxes, awesome playmats, wall scrolls, Eclipse dice. If you're buying something for a Magic player, it can often be a little bit difficult because you don't know exactly what cards they need or are excited by. But if you know they have a certain deck or something, a lot of times a player hasn't gone the full way of like buy that playmat, that deck box, those sleeves are matching colors or everything like that. And so if somebody gets you something like that, they have a favorite deck or whatever, and you get them a themed out set of playmat, deck box, and sleeves, I think that's a really classy way to go. You can get dice that match all that as well. So ultrapro.com/command, that is their direct to consumer website, which is a newish thing that they've got. They only started, I think, this year, and has a lot of discounts and deals too. So if you're looking for that, and I think every penny counts during the holidays. So
absolutely.
Yeah. ultrapro.com/command. All right. That's going to do it for this episode. I just want to give a big shout out to our amazing team here at the Command Zone: Damon Lenz, Arthur Meadowcroft, Lady Danger, Manson Lung, Craig Blanchett, Josh Murphy, Jake Boss, Patrick Nan, Jordan Pridgen, Sam Wallow, Grav Galati, Jamie Block, Mitch Trafford, and Evan Limburger. And we have 3 new members of our team: Gabriel Pozos, Megan Yip, and Eric Lem. So welcome them to the Command Zone family in the comments if you've got time. They're still learning the ropes, but they're going to be great additions to our team.
Seem like they're going to be cool.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with the Decepticons, hopefully very soon.
See you later.
Peace.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @JoshLeeQuai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.